Let's turn to campaign 2024. Just hours ago, the debate wrapped up between Jahana Hayes and George Logan.
That's right. The two candidates are running for the congressional seat to represent Connecticut's 5th District.
Channel 3 Eyewitness News reporter Olivia Schuler live from where WFSB hosted that debate at Naugatuck Valley Community Technical College in Waterbury. What's the recap, Olivia?
Caitlin and Tracy, the debate was contentious. Hayes talked about how she wants to continue to do her work in Congress. Meanwhile, Logan said now is the time for some change. The discussion hosted by WFSB focused on abortion, the southern border, and the state of democracy. Incumbent Democratic Congresswoman Jahana Hayes pressed her Republican challenger on who he was voting for. Logan replied he can't support 4 more years of the Biden-Harris administration, but refused to say Republican presidential nominee Donald Trump's name.
He can't even say Trump's name because, God forbid, he offend anyone in national Republicans. They'll stop funding his campaign.
Logan fired back, claiming Hayes stayed at the Democratic National Convention in August during devastation in the Naugatuck Valley.
She went to Chicago. When she knew it was a disaster, she stayed in Chicago, right, for a political party.
Logan continues to say Hayes had spent 6 years supporting and voting for Democratic leadership. She argues she has disagreed with her party before, citing a fentanyl bill that she says offers no prevention for treatment or harm reduction for law enforcement. Midway through the debate, an interruption while candidates spoke about world conflict. A protester took to the stage claiming the two support genocide in the Israel-Hamas war. Hayes beat Logan in the last election by a small margin of 2,000 votes. Now, the election is 26 days away. Now, that is when you'll see both Hayes and Logan's name on the ballot for Connecticut's 5th congressional district. We're live in Waterbury. Olivia Schuler, Channel 3 Eyewitness News.